Last name's Jones, for heaven's sakes, folks. The point is that model of the British East India Company, there's a reason the British took over the world and the sun never set. They knew how to run black ops because they'd been Norman from the Norman conquest and learned how to divide and conquer, hundreds of years before in 1100. So they shipped in addictive drugs to control the population. Same thing's been done here. Same thing's been done in Mexico. And when they're done, they're going to totally collapse America this way as well. That's what Homeland Security's for. It's what the anti-drug war forces are set up for. This is the sophisticated operation. And then they confiscate the drugs from any cowboy groups, heroin, cocaine, you name it, $500 billion a year coming out of Mexico. Look it up. And then they resell that on the market. Headline, Al Jazeera, Mexican officials, CIA manages drug trade. Yeah, it came out in federal court. But the Mexican people, now that Mexico's totally collapsed into a failed state, have stood up, and the Second Amendment has been born, and the government is literally having to recognize for the first time the right to keep and bear arms in a place where the Mexicans have been banned since they overthrew Maximilian with guns. And I heard it's going to be 40 degrees or something tonight and the 60 tomorrow. Another record cold spell. It's going to be snowing, I heard, in Denver. All part of the global warming. All right, folks, let me quantify, because sort of giving a history lesson on how drug wars, just like prohibition of alcohol, is meant to drive up the price and allow insider groups to run black markets and make record amounts of money while corrupting local governments. Mexico drug cartel funneled money through Bank of America. FBI says. Fox News. I remember 4 years ago, it was in the Bloomberg, $378 billion laundered of Mexican drug money over 3 years by Wells Fargo and Wachovia, and they didn't get in trouble. Now, but that's a side issue, okay? I've digressed. The point is, starting 5 years ago, AP says starting last year, that's when it really started becoming a big issue. But starting 5 years ago, I know, because Vice Magazine, they don't have an HBO show, online videos, they'd come and interviewed me, and then I went in to see my show on their channel and saw that there were Mexican vigilantes. That's why Vice is so successful. They'll cover stuff nobody else does because the mainstream media won't tell you what's going on. I'm not saying they're perfect. They're kind of trendy, but I learned from them what I didn't even know, and I thought I knew everything. You know, about stuff going on in Mexico, that there were vigilantes in the north central areas and other areas that had run the cartels and the corrupt army and the corrupt police out because they didn't have any choice. I mean, they were being shaken down every day. Last time I was in Mexico, about 4 years ago, we were down in Yucatan, and I wanted to go see some pyramids with my wife and children. We got on one of the big fancy tour buses there at the resort and got stopped by an army checkpoint, and they took all the driver's tips of the day on his way back, and he cried when he got on the bus. And they walked over, he argued with them, they shoved him, they took the money away from him. One of them started getting ready with a rifle, and they guard the marijuana fields. I mean, you're in Mexico, you drive by, there's troops guarding marijuana fields for the generals that then pay the Congress and the president of Mexico. I mean, it's on record. And now the CIA, by sending in new cartels that they armed in South Texas that I broke 6, 7 years ago, I said Los Zetas was run by the CIA. That's now Boston Globe. That's now LA Times, Chicago Tribune. Look it up. We had Silica Steele, a retired DEA agent, on saying, on my show, he said, they tried to hire me to train a group called Los Zetas to launch a war in Mexico because the CIA doesn't want the Mexican government getting all the money. So it's not all monolithic. There's a bunch of mafia groups battling, and what you're hearing is the truth. So imagine me and the hardworking Mexican farmers and hardworking Mexican ranchers. They got some nice ranches down there, hardworking, it's just like Texas. Cowboy hats folks come from Mexico. And we just showed photos for TV viewers earlier of the Mormon Mexicans down there who started all this. You got to give them credit. It's kind of like Cliven Bundy's a Mormon. You say what you want about the Mormons, but they're the ones doing this. It's spread everywhere across the country. I mean, I guess it was going on before with the Chiapas folks, but they're more communist. We've got some Chiapas on screen right there, but they got guts, and guts is enough. And literally, they're not going to be forced off their ancestral land up to Mexico City and then up to the Texas border, the Maquiladoras. They're standing on their land, they're fighting, and they're winning. And against overwhelming odds, the Mexican Chiapas folks have been winning a 20-year war. That was a small region, though. And because I like what they're doing, I buy their coffee directly from the Chiapas folks. It's the best tasting coffee, I think. High Mountain is a plug. Wake Up America coffee. There's a local brand of it I've loved for so long. I got a direct connection right to their co-op down there. But I support them because, they want liberty and they want freedom. Well, these other folks in the North Central area, now it's spreading across the country, they are literal Americana. And Americana is not just the U.S., folks. It's Mexico, too. The whole Wild West thing, that is Americana. And they have been kicking the cartel's butts. They've been kicking the military's butt, the Army. They've been kicking everybody's butt because they were tired of literally being exterminated. They were forced to the point of resisting. They were able to get guns illegally from the United States. Now, Fast and Furious started before it was even in the news. Mexico didn't like the fact that their citizens were getting over-the-counter, semi-auto, and single shot and things. That's what they've got. The Mexican cartels have an obsession. You can look this up with HK German weapons and German armored vehicles. And Wells Fargo got caught actually chartering aircraft, cargo jets, to fly these armored vehicles in. Look it up. That's in mainstream news. So they've got tanks, armored vehicles, small artillery, Laws rockets, bazookas, heavy machine guns, okay? That's not being bought over the counter. Hand grenades, granados, you name it, okay? So the Mexican people are now suddenly all over the country kicking the cartel's butts, kicking the military's butt, because these are all just conscripts and drug dealers and corrupt people. Once the ranchers are pushed to the wall, they've always secretly kept their guns in Mexico, but everybody would have a few old 50, 60, 70, 100-year-old guns, you know, back to even after Pancho Villa, especially in the north. So rugged folks, Western, just like anybody else in the West. I mean, northern Mexico is as Western culture as it gets. Western culture is Spanish more than anything else. This is the real culture. The cowboy hats, the leather, the chaps, the horses, the cowboys. You know, that is all literally from Spain, ladies and gentlemen. So the people are literally defeating armored vehicles, tanks, the best German weapons made. And I've got AP, Reuters, all of it right here that we're going to cover now in detail. This is so wonderful because here's the news. After 5 years, Reuters says this started last February of 2013, you know, 16 months ago. No, it didn't. It started 5 years ago that we know of. We covered it here. And now it's spreading all over the country as the people demand guns. And a byproduct of all the cross-border stuff is, and our Second Amendment, is they're getting guns. And it's even in the news. Everywhere where the public organizes with guns, crime rates drop to almost nothing, folks. Of course, Chicago has a total gun ban. Highest crime rate in the country, actually in the world. Mexico has the highest crime rate as a country in the world. Chicago beats it out as the worst city, though. Okay? And men know how to fight for their families, folks. You can't beat a guy fighting for his family. You can't beat people that have their backs pushed against the wall. I don't care how inferior their weapons are. It's called motivation. And so now the militias are kicking everyone's butt in Mexico. The people are. And they're not abusing the people. They're not robbing anyone. So now they're getting support. This is 1776 happening in Mexico. This is so good. This could spread to Latin America. This could spread all over the world as liberty is discovered. But it's because just like we've gotten the corruption of Mexico into our country as an infection, sometimes the cure comes from the infection. It got so bad there that when people are pushed to the very, very brink of destruction, they do this. And now the government is saying, all right, we're going to legalize militias. Just come and be under our command. And they're saying no. So the cure, the white blood cells are in Mexico, and they are literally dropping the crime rate everywhere, restoring order. The people are where the power rightfully resides, as George Washington said. The globalists have controlled the mainstream media for a long time, but now they're expanding and making the weaponization even more vicious and deceptive. All the major networks are state-run. We are partnering this year with the NFL. The NFL has become a political weapon against the Second Amendment and pushes Obamacare. MSNBC tells us that our children belong to the state. We have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. It is more important than ever to realize realize that we are not the alternative media. We are the true media. The establishment dinosaur press is dying.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
Join us at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Members can share their memberships with up to 11 people. By subscribing, you will literally be buying